All right, welcome everyone. We're diving deep into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now today.
Oh, a classic.
It really is. And, it's all about this idea of finding peace and fulfillment by really being present,
Hmm.
which I think we can all agree it's a lot harder than it sounds sometimes.
Right. Definitely easier said than done.
Exactly.
In theory, it's simple, but in practice.
Yeah, for sure. So Tolle, he introduces some pretty mind-bending ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to try to unpack some of the big ones like things like ego death.
Okay.
And this whole concept of the pain body, which I don't know about you, but when I first read that,
Yeah, it's a powerful image.
it really is.
It sticks with you.
Yeah. So you can kind of think of the power of now as this instruction manual almost
Okay.
for, really understanding your own mind. Right?
Yeah, it's about getting a handle on your thoughts
Mm.
instead of letting them, just run wild and control you.
Yeah, you're not a passenger in your own head.
Exactly. You're taking the wheel.
Totally. And especially in today's world, right? Where there's just constant distraction.
Yo, it's relentless.
Yeah, it's information overload 24/7.
So having these tools to kind of navigate that, it's more valuable than ever, I think.
For sure. So Tolle talks a lot about obviously being present, right? That's the core idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, what does that actually feel like, on a practical level?
Right. So he uses this great example of just eating a meal.
Okay.
Think about it. How often are you actually just eating
Yeah.
without scrolling on your phone or watching TV?
Oh, 100% guilty of that.
Right. Most of us are.
Yeah.
So Totally saying put the phone down, actually taste your food,
Mhm.
the flavors, the textures, really experience it.
Savoring it.
Yeah. How often do we actually do that?
Yeah, that's such a good point.
It's the simple thing.
Yeah, and so being present, it's really about just tuning in to your senses.
Tuning in.
Yeah, and experiencing the moment without all those distractions.
Right, exactly. And this is where he introduces a concept that, might make some people uncomfortable, which is the ego.
Right.
And his argument is the ego isn't really our true selves.
Okay.
It's more like this construct we've built up based on, external things.
So it's not like getting rid of your sense of self entirely.
No, not at all.
But it's about kind of being aware of how much of our identity is based on stuff outside of us.
Exactly. Yeah, it's always comparing itself,
Okay.
judging, wanting validation from the outside world.
Oh, I see, I see.
It thrives on feeling superior or even inferior to other people.
Right. It's that voice in your head that's oh, I'm not as successful as them, or I'm better at this than that person.
Exactly. Yeah. Classic ego.
It's always comparing.
Always. And that's where a lot of unnecessary suffering comes from.
That makes sense. Yeah. And so Tolle argues one of the best ways to combat that ego
Mm-hmm.
is through, practicing humility.
Humility. Yeah. And he points out that the ego hates humility.
Really? Why is that? Humility seems like a good thing.
Right. It is, but it threatens the ego
Okay.
because it undermines that need for separation,
Sure.
the need to be superior.
I see. It's humility is acknowledging that we're all connected.
Exactly. We're all part of something bigger.
Yeah, we're not all these separate, competing individuals.
Yeah. It's about letting go of that need to be right all the time.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is. And the need to be in control, which, the ego loves to be in control.
Totally. So when we choose humility, what does that even feel like? What shifts within us?
It can be really liberating.
Okay.
When you let go of that need for control,
Mhm.
there's this deeper sense of peace and acceptance.
Okay.
You don't need to prove yourself anymore.
Yeah, it's like stepping out of the boxing ring of your own mind.
Exactly. No more fighting for validation.
Exactly. And this is where things get interesting because Tolle says that clinging to those ego-driven narratives often goes hand in hand with this thing he calls the pain body.
Oh, yeah, the pain body.
Okay, tell me more. What is that?
So imagine it as this invisible entity
Okay.
that's carrying all of your past emotional pain.
So every time you've been hurt or disappointed,
It goes right in there.
it gets stored in this pain body.
Yeah, it's like a reservoir of old wounds, traumas, resentments that we just carry around with us.
And what's crazy is he's saying that can be triggered by stuff happening right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in the present moment.
Yeah. Let's say someone says something
Okay.
that reminds you of, some painful experience from way back.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it seems like a small thing, it can trigger this huge emotional response.
Like an overreaction.
Exactly. It's like that old wound is ripped open again.
Oh, that's kind of terrifying. So you're not just dealing with present moment stuff, but also this backlog of baggage.
That's the challenge. Yeah. And this is why understanding the pain body is so crucial. It's
Right.
not about dwelling in the pain of the past.
Mm.
It's about recognizing when it's active and then choosing not to be controlled by it.
Right, right. So how do we do that? How do we stop letting it run the show?
Well, Tolle gives us a bunch of techniques for that, and we'll get into those.
Aye.
But, this is a journey.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Like a process.
It takes time and practice to really disentangle yourself from these patterns, They're deeply ingrained.
Yeah, they really are.
But it is possible, and that's the good news.
That's the hope.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's like, when you're first learning to ride a bike,
Yeah.
it's all wobbly. You're not sure if you're going to fall.
Right, you're wobbling all over the place.
But with practice, you find your balance.
Yeah, you get the hang of it.
And eventually you're just gliding,
Right.
effortlessly.
I love that. So it's not about being present perfectly all the time.
No way.
It's more like developing that skill to bring yourself back to the moment.
Exactly. Because you will get caught up in those old thought patterns. It happens.
It's inevitable.
It is. And Tolle, he gives us a whole toolbox of techniques to help with that.
Okay, so what's in the toolbox?
Well, one of the most fundamental ones is observing the mind.
Observing the mind. Okay, what does that actually look like? Like, how do you do that?
It's about becoming aware of your thoughts, but not getting carried away by them.
Okay.
It's like watching clouds drift by,
Okay.
You see them, you acknowledge them, but you don't try to grab onto them.
Right.
You just let them pass through.
So instead of getting caught up in that mental loop of worry or planning,
Mm-hmm.
you're just noticing it without judgment. Easier said than done, I imagine.
It takes practice, but it gets easier.
Yeah, like anything you practice.
Exactly. And one way to practice is by focusing on the breath.
Focusing on your breath.
Okay.
How does that tie into observing your mind?
Well, your breath, it's always there, right? In the present moment.
Yeah, it's constant.
It's like an anchor.
Okay.
So when you bring your attention to it,
Mm-hmm.
to the sensation of breathing, you're gently pulling your focus away from those thoughts and grounding yourself in the now.
Okay, so it's like a tool to train your mind
Exactly.
to be more present.
Right. And he also talks about something called the body scan.
A body scan, is that like what you get at the doctor's office?
Not quite. This is a mental body scan.
Oh, okay.
You get comfortable, sit or lie down,
Mm-hmm.
and you just bring your attention to different parts of your body,
Okay.
starting with your toes and slowly moving up to the top of your head.
So you're tuning into those physical sensations.
Exactly. You might notice warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure, even just a sense of spaciousness.
Interesting.
The key is to just observe without judgment.
So don't try to change anything, just notice it.
Exactly. And as you do this, you start to realize there's a space
A space.
between your thoughts and your true self.
Wow, so it's not about stopping thoughts altogether.
No.
It's about creating that distance.
Exactly.
Like you're not your thoughts.
Well, they're the observer.
You're the one watching them.
Right. And once you see that space,
Mm-hmm.
you realize you have a choice.
Okay.
You don't have to be controlled by those thoughts.
That's powerful.
It is. You can choose which ones to engage with and which ones to let go of.
That's so empowering.
It is. And that leads us to another key principle in the power of now, which is letting go of the past.
Letting go of the past, okay.
Tolle argues that so much of our suffering comes from clinging to past experiences.
Right, the things that aren't serving us anymore.
Exactly. All those old hurts, regrets, grudges.
You all have them?
We do. And one of the most powerful ways to let go is through forgiveness.
Forgiveness, I'll be honest, that's something I struggle with.
I get it. It can feel like you're letting the other person off the hook.
Yeah, or like you're condoning what they did.
Right. But Tolle's point is forgiveness isn't about the other person.
Okay.
It's about freeing yourself.
From that resentment.
Yes, from that anger, that bitterness.
Because holding on to that, it just hurts you.
Exactly. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Oh, wow. That's a powerful analogy.
It is. Forgiveness is an act of self-care.
Self-care. Okay.
It's about choosing to release the past and move forward with a lighter heart.
So it's not condoning what happened?
No, it's choosing to not be defined by it anymore.
That makes sense. So if you're holding on to anger towards someone, you're essentially letting them have power over you.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Wow.
Forgiveness is about reclaiming your own power, your own peace of mind.
I'm realizing this takes a lot of humility.
It does.
Letting go of the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's accepting that you've been hurt, that you've made mistakes,
Right.
and choosing to move forward with compassion.
For yourself and others.
Exactly. Both are important.
They are. And as you cultivate that humility and acceptance, you naturally start to dissolve the ego's grip.
So it's not about forcing the ego to go away.
No, not at all.
It's more about creating the right conditions.
Yeah, setting a stage.
Where it naturally starts to fade away.
Exactly. And this leads us to another key principle, embracing acceptance.
Embracing acceptance. Okay, what does that look like in the context of living in the now?
It means making peace with the present moment, whatever it may hold.
Okay.
Accepting what is, without resistance, without judgment.
So even if you're going through tough times,
even then,
you can still choose to approach it with acceptance.
Precisely. He uses the example of being stuck in traffic.
Okay, classic.
Instead of getting all frustrated and angry.
Which we all do.
Which changes nothing, right?
Yep.
You practice radical acceptance.
Yeah.
You acknowledge, I'm in traffic, it's out of my control.
I make the best of it.
Exactly. Maybe listen to some music, practice mindfulness.
Or just enjoy the scenery. If it's nice.
Right. It's about shifting your perspective, finding the good in every situation.
That's where gratitude comes in.
Gratitude, yes. So powerful.
How does that tie into acceptance?
Well, when you're focused on what you're grateful for, it's hard to dwell on what's wrong or what you're lacking.
It shifts your focus.
Exactly. It shines a light on the positive.
Even in the midst of challenges.
Even then, and the book suggests some practical ways to cultivate gratitude.
Okay, like what?
Keeping a gratitude journal.
A gratitude journal. Okay.
Simple but effective.
How does that work?
Every day, just take a few minutes to write down things you're grateful for.
Okay.
Could be anything, big or small, a beautiful sunset, a good meal.
Just little things you appreciate.
Exactly, and it reminds you of all the good in your life.
Right, it helps to reframe things.
It does, and as you cultivate that gratitude, it spills over into other areas of your life.
Okay.
You approach challenges differently, with more grace.
More resilience.
Exactly, and you let go of the things you can't control.
You know, as we're talking about all this,
yeah,
I'm seeing how interconnected it all is.
It is. It's all woven together.
Observing the mind, letting go of the past, embracing acceptance, gratitude. They all work together to create a more peaceful and present life.
That's a beautiful insight. They're not separate practices.
It's a holistic approach.
Exactly, to living in the now.
And it's not about becoming like some emotionless robot.
Right. No.
Who never feels anything negative.
You're still human.
It's about learning to navigate those experiences.
With more awareness.
With skill, with tools.
Exactly. You become more conscious of your thoughts and emotions.
And you can choose how you want to respond.
Instead of just reacting automatically.
Instead of being controlled by them.
Right. You're taking back the reins.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, presence, ego, all these techniques.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
But I gotta say, this whole pain body thing, it's really sticking with me.
It's a powerful concept.
It is, and honestly, it's kind of daunting, you know?
I get it. It can feel pretty heavy.
Yeah, so practically speaking, what can we actually do to, like, start dissolving this pain body?
Well, remember, it thrives in the shadows.
Okay.
So the first step is bringing it into the light.
So acknowledging it exists.
Exactly.
And starting to see how it shows up in your life.
Right. Notice when you have a reaction that seems out of proportion, like way bigger than the situation calls for.
Or an overreaction.
Exactly. And ask yourself, is this really about what's happening right now? Or is my pain body getting triggered?
So pause before reacting.
Take a breath.
Observe what's going on inside.
Exactly. And you might notice physical sensations.
Okay.
Tightness in your chest, your heart racing, that kind of thing.
Or even emotional patterns, right?
Absolutely. Anger, sadness, those familiar feelings.
It's like becoming a detective of your own inner world.
I love that analogy. Yeah, just notice those sensations.
Without judgment.
Without judgment, that's key. That's a huge step right there.
Wow. Okay. And once you start to recognize it, what then? What are some ways to, like, actually manage those intense emotions?
Well, Tolle talks about using the breath as an anchor.
Okay, like we were talking about before.
Exactly. When you feel those big feelings coming up, take a few deep breaths, really slow.
Okay.
Notice the sensation of each inhale, each exhale.
Grounding yourself.
Yeah, it calms the nervous system.
Soothes things down.
It creates space between you and those overwhelming emotions.
Okay, and what about visualization?
Oh, visualization is great. Tolle talks about that too.
Okay, like what kind of visualization?
You can imagine yourself surrounded by white light.
Okay.
Or picture a peaceful place, a beach, a forest, whatever brings you calm.
Right, shifting your focus.
Exactly, away from the pain body's grip.
So lots of different tools in the toolbox.
There are, but sometimes, it's hard to shake those negative feelings.
Yeah, they can be really persistent.
They can, and in those moments, Tully suggests something radical.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Allowing the emotions to just be there.
To just be there. But doesn't that make them stronger?
Not necessarily. Think about it.
Okay.
When you try to push emotions away,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? They usually intensify.
Yeah, that's true.
But when you create space for them,
Okay.
when you allow them to be felt,
Mm-hmm.
often they start to dissipate on their own.
Interesting. So it's not about ignoring them,
No, it's about acknowledging them.
but not letting them control you.
Exactly. It's like those waves crashing on the shore.
Okay.
If you fight against them, they'll knock you down.
You get swept away.
But if you stand firm, let them wash over you.
Oh,
They eventually recede back into the ocean.
that's such a good image. So it's about learning to ride those waves.
Exactly. With grace, with awareness.
Wow, this is all really resonating with me. I'm starting to see how working with the pain body, it's not just about personal transformation.
Right.
It's also about creating a more peaceful world.
That's a beautiful point. Yeah. When we heal our own pain.
We're less likely to hurt others.
Exactly. We break the cycle.
It's like we each have a responsibility to create this ripple effect
A ripple effect of peace.
of presence, of compassion.
And the more people who embrace these principles, the bigger that ripple becomes.
A collective shift.
A movement towards greater awareness.
Wow, this has been such a rich deep dive into the power of now.
I agree. It's a powerful book.
It's given me so much to think about and so many practical tools to try.
That's what it's all about, putting these ideas into practice.
And it all starts with that simple choice, to be present.
In this moment.
Right here, right now. To all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and may you discover the power and peace that comes from embracing the now.